It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome everyone into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology turned podcast. Everyone, welcome into the program. I hope that you're doing well and you are ready for today's program because, well, if you didn't know before the break, and by the way, again, welcome back to the show after the break. We had our, nice holiday little break there. I hope all of you had a good one as well. And we are now gearing up for the busiest, which, always works out very well in our world. The busiest time of the year, which is CES 2024. That's happening January 9th through the 12th. We'll have recaps, we'll have interviews, and of course, Computer America, because, everyone's on the show floor, everyone's like all hands on deck to get to Vegas and to, kind of present for people, all that good stuff. What we really try to do is to, of course, keep you up to date on what's going to happen at the event itself and, kind of the big announcements and the smaller announcements. Because let's face it, the newest TV that Samsung or LG are going to put out, that's going to get a little bit of press. That's good. But also CES has like 20,000 vendors or something like that, 50,000 vendors. I don't know what this year is going to be, but, it should be somewhere in that, tens of thousands of vendors kind of way. And where Computer America really shines is getting you interviews with, not just the big ones, but also the small ones, the smaller companies that make children's products. They make, different kinds of lighting. They make health products. They make, one of my, just off the top of my head, one of my favorite products from Showstoppers was a product that it looked like a little furry pillow, but it had a tail and it had AI inside of it. And this was a couple of years ago, before AI was really a thing, but it had learning inside of it, and it could actually sense when a patient, and this is for like stress relief, when a patient was getting overly stressed, and it would start to kind of purr essentially and vibrate and wag its tail and stuff like that. It was like mimicking a cat. It's like a lap pillow that would mimic a cat, and it would actually help patients kind of, soothe themselves during treatment and things like that. Little products like that are what really slipped through the cracks of CES. BMW is going to have their spot, Samsung's going to have their spot, but there's a lot to check out, and yeah, we're going to try to help you with that. So computeramerica.com, again, January 9th through the 12th, and then of course, for weeks and weeks after, we're going to have interviews with, with a lot of companies. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the program once again. I hope you had a great Christmas, and let's go ahead. I think that's enough stalling. computeramerica.com, that's where you'll find everything. That's where you'll find show notes, which are super important for today's guest, because, he puts a lot of effort into these things. They're really cool. And, he doesn't give you his phonetic ones, but, otherwise, they're very nice show notes, and you should definitely check them out over in his segment. In his corner, Ralph Bond segment right there at the top, we have a whole segment, part of the website dedicated to him and all of his shows. So, Ralph, welcome back onto the program. How you doing? Yep.
The feeling that it's going to be a good year because of science and technology advancements. So that's what we do here. We're not going to talk about what's horrible things going on in the Middle East or no. And again, I agree with you about the bit on CES about the smaller companies being really, really interesting. Because again, you expect the big companies, Microsoft and all those other folks, to have their big announcements, and that's great. But I used to go to CES when I was with Intel Corporation for almost 14 years, went to many CES shows. And I also enjoyed wandering around when on free time and looking at the smaller companies and the smaller little technologies. And sometimes those percolate up to the top and feed the mainstream trends. And that's what we
Yes.
do in this show every Friday. We look at science and technology trends. And we've got a great lineup to kick off this new year.
We absolutely do, and you really have a nice smorgasbord. I think would be the appropriate word of everything from green energy to medical to all that good stuff. So, Ralph, I think if you're ready, I think we just jump right into it.
Yeah, this is great. Okay, this first story comes from wonderfulengineering.com. What a great name for a website, and a great website too. Headline: This AI robot just taught itself how to walk. And again, as Ben mentioned, we have the show notes. The show notes are especially important for people. If you're listening to us as a podcast and not seeing the video, please come out to computeramerica.com. Come to my area, the Ralph Bond tab at the top. Click on that. You'll see the show notes. We'll have the links, pictures. You can dive deeper because Ben and I are just going to kind of skip a stone over the surface of the water of these stories with just some highlights. There's so much more information. And one thing I want to say right off the top is the headline used the word transformer. They called the robot a transformer. It's really not. So I dropped that from my show notes headlines. I just wanted to be truth in lending accurate. But here we go. Here's the story. Researchers at the University of California, Berkeley, in specific, the Berkeley Robotics and Human Engineering Laboratory, have developed a humanoid robot using artificial intelligence techniques that autonomously, autonomously learned how to walk in the physical world. Wow, let that sink in for a second. The teal-colored robot has demonstrated the ability to navigate varied terrains on the university campus, showcasing its potential for operation in diverse environments. However, qualifier here, the robot has yet to master the skill of navigating steps, but you can be assured that's coming up next round.
I think that was the plot of, was it Terminator 1 or 2, where the machine was coming up the stairs, but it couldn't do the stairs, and it was, yeah.
Something like, yeah, that does sound familiar.
Yes.
Apparently, that's a very daunting and difficult challenge.
We take it for granted, we do.
Well, yeah, right. The UC Berkeley researchers explored the application of what's called reinforcement learning, a concept popularized by large language models to teach the robot adaptive behaviors. They chose walking as the basic human function to test their theory. So again, this is not concluded research. This is sort of a progress report that they've issued. So keep that in mind as we go on. And hey, by the way, timeout. What is large language model? And this is an example of what I do to add value to these articles. I'll say to myself, well, wait a minute, what does that mean? The author of the piece assumes you know what this means. I don't make that assumption. A lot of times I insert side notes or little asides here to give you extra information. So what is a large language model? A large language model is a large-scale language model notable for its ability to achieve general purpose language understanding and generation. So this is a technique coming from language, okay? But these researchers said there's principles of this large language model approach that could be applied to autonomously training a robot. Wow, that's pretty interesting.
It's really cool that they were able to, like large language models are the reason why you're talking to more and more robots when you call like tech support and, and you call companies and stuff like that, and you do those chatbots. So they somehow were able to make a chatbot, put it in a robot, and it's able to walk. And that is really cool research.
Yeah, it is. All the way around this story is very cool. It gets cooler. Here we go. The researchers initiated the learning process in a simulated environment using Isaac Gym. That's ISAAC, Isaac Gym, and gym like gymnasium. And I thought, what the heck is that? Isaac Gym, a high-performance graphics processing unit-based physics simulation. Oh, there's a whole world to explore about this stuff, this Isaac Gym things. But what they did is billions of scenarios were run in simulation where the algorithm rewarded actions that mimicked human-like walking and penalized those that did not. Once perfected, the simulation... once perfected in the simulation, the learned behavior was transferred to the real world humanoid robot without requiring further fine tuning. Wow. And then in the show notes, folks, If you want to learn a little bit more, what is a graphics processing unit? And what is this Isaac Gem stuff? I'm not going to take time today in the show here to go through this, but you can come to the show notes. I've added some additional information that'll help you go through the whole thing. But I will say this about Isaac Gem. It offers a high-performance learning platform to train policies for a wide variety of robotics tasks directly on the graphics processing unit. So again, you can dive deeper into that through the show notes, and there's an additional link to dive even further deeper if you so desire.
Absolutely, yeah. And I was just looking at Isaac Gym. I'm assuming Isaac, Isaac Newton, and Gym being, just like you said, a gymnasium.
Yeah.
I was looking at some of the videos, and you recreate your robot in a 3D space.
Yeah.
And there you go. You can train this thing. And really, that's even more incredible because, again, they said that they did that without further development. Like it went from 3D environment to real world instantly. That's really cool.
Yeah, a classic case of a form of machine learning, which is just remarkable. Mm-hmm. And so to go on here, it says the core of the learning system is a deep learning model known as causal transformer, widely used in large language models. So again, a part of this large language model business to predict sequences of data elements. Deploying this model allowed the robot to learn from observations and actions, predicting the consequences of its actions in new landscapes it had never encountered before. Wow, that's a loaded sentence. Let me read that one again, because let this sink in, folks. Deploying this model allowed the robot to learn from observations and actions, predicting the consequences of its actions in new landscapes it had never encountered before. It's like you and me, Ben. What if we walked up to the edge of a cliff and we thought, if I jump, I'm going to die? It's a predictive thing. And this is the thing that I thought was just really, really interesting in this research.
I assume we have never walked off a cliff, but this robot as well has never walked off a cliff, but would know that if it walked off a cliff, it would not end well, just like you said. And, it's that kind of like AI capability, being able to use data or, kind of like infer data, I guess is really the way that you look at it, that, is really such an advancement that AI has kind of brought to us. You don't need to program for every situation because the model can kind of predict, hey, if I do this, that'll happen. And that's the huge advancement I think that they're really showing off here.
Yeah, it's the ultimate human-like form of if-then-else algorithm, right? Wow. Anyway, okay, so going on here, it says, the article says, over the past year, now this article was published late last month on the 22nd of December, so they're talking about over the past, year of 2023, the humanoid robot has successfully traversed the UC Berkeley campus, adapting to patches of grass and roads. Notably, the researchers observed the emergence of unintended traits in the robot's behavior. I can't stress enough what I'm about to read that follows just struck me like a brick to the forehead of just, oh my God, I can't believe this. Here's what it is. For instance, the robot exhibited human-like traits, such as swinging its left arm while moving its right foot forward or taking smaller steps to maintain balance on slopes. Impressively, the robot achieved this without relying on sensors to perceive its environment. In other words, it kind of figured out, hey, they didn't teach this robot to swing its arms like we do when we walk. We're doing that for balance reasons, right? As I understand this correctly.
The best way to go uphill is with small steps, and it just knew that natively.
It was able to figure this out on its own autonomously. Ben, this just blows my mind. It's so profound and where we're headed. And while the robot showcased resilience by maintaining balance when subjected to external disturbances like pokes or thrown exercise balls, so in other words, they would take sticks and poke this guy and throw balls at him while he's walking around, there are areas for improvement, of course. The robot's gait is not as refined as a human's, appearing jerky, especially on harder surfaces like concrete or asphalt. Moreover, the robot lacks awareness of obstacles until it physically encounters them. So it's not in the distance. If say 100 feet away, it's not going, there's a drop off
yet.
Here.
Right.
Not yet. The researchers plan to address these limitations in future development. So again, friends, this is a great example of an early glimmer in the eye early forecast, if you will, research. So they plan to address these limitations in future developments. While the robot may not yet be an ideal home or factory bot, its self-learning capabilities mark a promising start for the development of adaptive humanoid robots. Ta-da! I mean, wow. It's just wow.
Nice article. Looks like the original source kind of put transformative in there because of the word transformer, but yeah, I mean, and this whole article from beginning to end, like, this isn't anything that we haven't seen from like Boston Dynamic or something like that. Their robots are a bit more agile, but for these two research students to take, this large language model, like you said, and repurpose it to train a robot, two students is a lot different than, tens of millions and hundreds of millions of research dollars and some of the best data scientists out there over at, again, Boston Dynamics. It's really showing that, training these things is getting much more accessible. It's getting a lot more accessible, reasonable, and hey, it's going to be coming faster and faster. So this is very cool. And I love the video that went along with it. So ladies and gentlemen, check that out.
Well, once again, Ben, to just super distill this down, go right to the head. This thing taught itself to walk. That's the ding, ding, ding of this story. As wonderful things, Boston Dynamics, all these other people, great. I mean, it's all wonderful. Now add this layer of the ability to teach itself such things as so fundamental as walking. Holy smokes, where are we headed? That's just
it's almost childlike, really, because, children teach themselves, like 90% of what kids do, they kind of teach themselves in the world around them. And then, of course, you send them to school and you kind of coax the teaching and you introduce new concepts, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But if the robot has that, kind of innate ability to learn and adapt, that's going to take a lot of work out of, kind of training these robots. So,
right.
Very, very cool. So maybe one day robots will replace kids. So there you go. We'll see. Kids, they're coming for your jobs. Story number two. This one is this is something, and I don't say this often because Ralph covers such a wide variety, and everything is kind of iterative. Wind turbines. I think everyone's kind of heard of those. This design, though, this is something I have not seen before, and it's not often I say that. So, let's talk about story number two.
This is fun in the world of energy generation through wind. And of course, when you say that, most of us think of those very, very tall, huge towers with the giant blades, spinning around, right? This is an alternative, which I think is just fascinating. So the headline here is, company unveils bladeless honeycomb wind turbines. And it comes from The Cool Down, story by Allison Hunt. It's really, really, the pictures in the show notes, folks, just right away catch your attention and your imagination, I would think. And it sure did for me. That's why I dug into this story. There's also a wonderful video, and the company's website has great videos as well. So here's what we're talking about. An outfit called Catrick, Katrick Technologies out of Glasgow, Scotland, has developed a honeycomb-shaped wind turbine. And it's actually an array of these things put together like Lego pieces. Traditional wind turbines, as we just mentioned a moment ago, the large ones with a fan rotary on the top, the big guys, are costly to install, no surprise, and they require a substantial amount of land as well, right? If you've ever seen those wind farms, it's remarkable how huge these things are and how much land they require. Well, Catrick Technologies has an alternative solution. Their new honeycomb-shaped wind turbines are significantly more compact, making them better suited for urban areas, that's the key, with the capability to sit on already existing buildings, the top thereof, and similar structures. Hey, that's an important benefit right there. They're talking about something that could be practically put on the top of buildings and other structures in an urban environment, as opposed to the traditional, huge sticks with the blade thing that you have to go out into the countryside, right? Or out in the ocean. So how do these things work? They utilize oscillating aerofoils. And in this case, it's spelled Aerofoils, pronounced airfoils. And when I was a kid, I'm so old, Ben, When I was a kid, we didn't call them airplanes. We called them aeroplanes. That's how old I am. And that is, if you look it up, you can Google this. That was the original. It comes from a French word. And so anyway, that's the original for airplanes.
I mean,
But
it's a
how
good
do they
change.
work?
We save ourselves a whole syllable.
There it is. They utilize oscillating airfoils to capture wind instead of the typical rotations of the old school fan design. These airfoils enable even lower levels of wind to be captured. That's the key. Lower levels of wind to be captured and therefore create even more sustainable energy. Catrick, the company, explains the process as, quote, the airfoils convert kinetic energy from wind to mechanical oscillations. Now, oscillations, folks, I'm doing this with my hand if you're looking at the video, which are converged and converted into electricity. To put it in layman's terms, the airfoils catch the movement of the wind and then turn that movement into energy. So a key difference here, if you're listening to us as a podcast, you kind of have to close your eyes and picture this kind of honeycomb shaped thing. Inside of the modules within the honeycomb are these little blades, and they don't spin around in a circle. They wiggle. They oscillate. It's the oscillation. And the key there, too, as I understand it from reading the article and looking at other articles about this same technology, is it takes far less wind movement to make these little guys oscillate than the amount of wind needed to make the traditional fan, gigantic foils or blades move around, right? So it's very, very clever, I think. So Catrick's honeycomb-shaped wind turbines are designed more like hexagonal fans, with those oscillating airfoils moving fairly slowly in limited sections of the honeycomb design. The slowness means that it doesn't take a lot of air movement to make these guys start to wiggle. And boy, the video you're showing right now is perfect. That comes from the company's website. The company has yet to comment on the safety of this in relation to birds, but even an untrained eye can see that grates or screens could easily be placed around these turbines to prevent animals and debris from entering. So there's an easy fix for that problem if you're concerned with that issue. In addition to being more compact, this design cuts costs, is unobtrusive per its maker, has a small footprint, relatively speaking, with minimal impact on the environment and wildlife, and is long lasting. And by the way, I think in the company's video, they show putting these alongside a highway or a freeway. And you can imagine, as was the case, remember a couple of years ago, we talked about in Istanbul, they put these columnar wind turbines in the middle of the road of this very busy highway.
Bus lanes. Yeah.
Yeah, and the bus lanes, right. And that was generating energy. And I thought, how genius is this? Well, this product, this technology could be deployed in that fashion as well on a large scale. They also show in their video, I think, airport, perfect.
Yep.
All the amounts of wind generated by these aircraft taking off and landing, you could have these things positioned in airports to help generate energy. And there was another company we did, I think, last year that had a similar kind of concept and was parking these wind turbines, but they had a little different design. I love this little wiggly, oscillating blades inside of each of the compartments.
The other company was making windbreak walls, which I guess is something that is normal in airports to kind of prevent the jets from, affecting other things. And they wanted to turn the windbreak wall into a little power generation station to power, self-charging car charging stations out in the parking lot, which is cool. And again, stuff like that's going to happen. The video really goes to great lengths to kind of show that, this shot, for instance, if you're watching the video portion there, that they're showing the wind turbines in the distance. So they're really going out of their way to say, this is not going to replace wind turbines. This is going to go places that, are adjunct to wind turbines, such as the shot here. They actually, they're like, well, if you set the land aside anyways for wind turbines, why not utilize the ground level to put these things and you'd be able to generate electricity on two levels. So, stuff like that. The video does a really good job of, kind of showing that. I really like the idea, and I never really, I don't know. When I think of wind turbines, they're usually in places with high wind, and they don't go super fast, but they have a lot of wind and they generate to capture the low energy wind that's kind of going around. That's something new and different, and that's really cool.
Yeah. The wiggle factor, the oscillation is
Yes.
is just great. And again, folks, if you're listening to us as a podcast, please come out to computeramerica.com. Get the show notes so you can get the links, see the pictures. It'll all come to life for you.
Yes.
And this raises a point, too, you were alluding to a moment ago. All last year and the previous years we've been together, we've talked time and time again about when these technologies come out, these people are not saying we're the one and only answer. No. For sustainable green energy production, I think the future is a conglomerate of technologies. It's a combination. It's all of these things. If we have solar panels on the top of our cars, if we have these devices interspersed with the big traditional wind farms, if we do this, if we do that, put it all together, what do you got? Bibbity bobbity boo, a green world going forward. So that's a theme that we're going to continue to hammer on because it's so important.
That's exactly what they're pushing as well. They have a lot of different solutions.
Yes.
And still, ladies and gentlemen, go check out the video. Very, very cool. Let's go ahead and skip on over to story number 3. And this one's going to hit a little bit closer to the vest because, it could be a vest. So let's talk about story number 3.
Yes, I love this one. So headline here is innovative solar-powered clothing, access personal air conditioning. Now, Ben, you and I, over the past several years, have covered many stories where people have developed vests or hats or other clothing items that could generate power through solar energy to maybe run your help keep your phone charged or keep a tool charged, that kind of thing. The difference here, and this is why I like this so much, is the idea of personal air conditioning. And I thought, well, okay, when we think of air conditioning, that's usually a very power intensive kind of process, right? So how do they do this? Well, this story comes from Techspot, and it's really, really interesting. So here we go. In a paper titled Self-Sustaining Personal All-Day Thermoregulatory Clothing Using Only Sunlight, published December 14, just a few weeks ago, in the journal Science, a team of Chinese researchers describe how they created solar-powered smart clothing using flexible solar cells and an electronic device. And we've seen the development over the last couple of years, Ben, as you know, of flexible, very thin, flexible solar panels, or solar cells, rather. This is kind of bringing that technology and combining it with some other clever things to create this air conditioning clothing. Wow. So the team developed a thermoregulatory clothing system that combines an organic photovoltaic module with bidirectional electrocaloric devices. Wait a minute.
I should have known. I was just thinking about multi-directional bio. Yeah. I was just thinking about that the other day. I should have known.
Every day. That's a part of my life every day. No, just kidding. So folks, bear with us because we're going to explain that. So again, the system combines an organic photovoltaic module with bidirectional electrocaloric devices that are capable of heating or cooling. Not only are both components flexible, that the Chinese researchers have created, which is important in clothing, but they're also run off sunlight, meaning there's no need to carry around an external power source. Okay, side note, we do need to get into this. A lot of times I don't dig into the side notes, but I think we do here. Side note, what is meant by organic photovoltaic? Organic photovoltaic devices convert solar energy to electrical energy. Okay, no surprise there. A typical organic photovoltaic device consists of one or several photoactive materials sandwiched between two electrodes. And there's a little image in the show notes that depicts the typical organic photovoltaic device, okay? And then a side note, what the heck is electrocaloric? I'm thinking, is it something like calories and losing weight? No. So electrocaloric materials are a class of materials that exhibit a change in temperature in response to an applied electric field. A change in temperature in response to applied electric field. Interesting. This phenomenon is known as the electrocaloric effect. So get the calories out of your head, okay?
Yeah.
Electrocaloric effect, which is the basis for the development of solid state refrigeration systems. Wow. I got to be honest, I've never heard of solid state refrigeration systems. That's something I'd like to learn more about.
Yeah.
That sounds really cool. And the clothing that they developed is designed to extend the standard human thermal comfort zone from a range of 22 Celsius through 28 Celsius, or 71.6 through 82.4 Fahrenheit, to a range of 12.5 Celsius through 37.6 Celsius, or 54.5 through 99.6 Fahrenheit. So that's what their goal is, to keep us in a comfort zone, so to speak. And the device is efficient enough to give 24 hours worth of power from 12 hours of sunlight. Now, we're going to talk about that 12 hours of sunlight. I've got an idea, a suggestion of how this could be sensible in the real world, okay? According to the description, it also has a simple structure, compact design, and can be integrated into existing clothing. Now, let's talk about that 12 hours of charging. The first thing that came to my mind was, what if you were, I don't know, firefighters or whatever, there's some police force, whatever. You could have the clothing, the vest or whatever it might be, on racks exposed. And then you just rotate. You rotate out, because the 12 hours of exposure, unless you're one of those flaggers on the highway guiding traffic, right? When they're doing construction on the road and you're standing out in the sunlight for hours, and maybe construction workers would probably qualify for something like this. So the 12 hours, let's get real, but to get 12 hours of exposure to the sun equals 24 hours worth of power is to do this thermal conditioning for your body. Wow. It's still pretty darn impressive.
It's even if you get, like, let's say you cut those numbers in half, 6 hours of sunlight is 12 hours of cooling, temperatures.
Yeah.
And that's something, that's something that a whole day's cooling, at least during the daytime, would be very nice. I know that in Texas last year, especially in the summer, they had they had a heat wave there that lasted, and I know a lot of other places did too. But in Texas, they had to have people literally, just stop working. Like, that's just
yes,
to protect themselves, which is good that they protected themselves. But clothing systems like this, very, very important. Ralph, like, I kind of imagine a world where if this was in any way, to be practical, you still keep, the kind of like the self-charging kind of thing, but it would have an extensive battery pack that you would charge and keep charged, just like you would, a radio or any other piece of equipment you have. And, it would also charge from the sunlight as well. So you kind of mix a battery with the self-charging. To give it a longer, kind of life. Very cool idea. Obviously, you're tackling symptoms of a changing climate, but still, that's protecting people, and that's always very important. So
cool. And your comment a moment ago made me think about the classic example here in Oregon. I'm sure elsewhere in the country, when we had the terribly hot summer. The farm workers, the poor men and women that are out there all day long. Oh my goodness, out exposed in the horrible heat and conditions. If you could provide them with clothing that could help keep them cooler anyway, it would be a huge step forward. And to conclude, the article here says the researchers wrote in a separate article, not in the paper that was published, quote, "It is possible to imagine a future of all-weather thermal management," and I'll insert the word clothing, "that is not limited by an energy supply, and where extra collected energy might even power electronic devices under special conditions." So this is an example, again, of a trend of early research, folks. We'll see how this goes, where it goes. But salute to these guys in China for figuring this out. It's pretty exciting.
I would say that one of the big trends that this really highlights for me, and I think a lot of people should kind of take note of going forward, is it seems like researchers are trying to find ways to capture not wasted energy, because it has, I guess waste energy is a good point. Like, the mechanical energy throughout a day of moving and walking and stuff like that. We've seen clothing that captures that. We've seen ways of capturing, kind of like the condensation, using that to generate electricity.
Yes.
Ralph, it seems like we're moving from, like, we have some pretty good big concept ideas. I mean, somewhere out there, Ralph, they're working on the plasma fusion, kind of energy generation that's going to power everything forever. Whatever. Right. So like they're working on the big brain ideas, but we're getting a lot more smaller, capture the little day-to-day life energy that we kind of waste and turn that into more useful energy. And that's something that I think has a lot more application. So
yeah, you're right, Ben. And it goes back to a point we were stressing a moment earlier in the show. It is not just one thing that solves the problem. This is part of a hierarchy of clever ways to take advantage of this incredible energy we're getting all the time from the sun. For heaven's sakes, everything from ideas of capture things in orbit around the Earth and sending energy back to the Earth, down to your clothing. I mean, if we can fully exploit what's already here, we could have a green future. And
absolutely.
This is another good example of that kind of approach.
Yeah. And of course, and speaking of making that future brighter for a lot of people, you usually tip your hat. I silently do as well, that there's a lot of research, especially medical, which story number 4 is medical, that, sometimes in human history, you needed to put perfume on a chimp to see if the chimp's skin melted off its body, in which case you said, okay, that perfume's probably not good for people. And, stuff like that. Obviously, animal rights and animal activists have come a long way. But still, when it comes to some medicine, before you ever, kind of get through human trials or whatever, you can, you have to test on rats and then pigs and then, so on and so forth, which is an unnecessary, I'm sorry, not unnecessary, very necessary, but unfortunate side effect of our system that we have in place. Ralph has found a way that, just because it's the way that we've done it, and, just because some people might think that rats and pigs are dispensable, hey, to cut out that one extra step of suffering with technology is actually really remarkable. So that's why I like starting before.
Oh, I do too. And so here's the headline, and we're going to make a qualifier about one of the words used in the headline in a moment here, much like that transformer issue earlier with the robot. So the headline here is a novel 3D body on chip. Chip's the word I have a problem with. We'll talk about that. So a novel 3D body on chip printed device that could replace the need for drug and chemical safety testing on animals. This comes from Interesting Engineering. Great. This one is so profound. It just takes my breath away. So in the show notes, we have links, of course, pictures. We have a link to the official university press release, which is a must see, and a link to the video and so on and so forth. So let me make this qualifier about the headline. Note, the researchers' video they created calls the device, we'll talk about, a chip. Yet, the official university press release does not. Personally, I can't see why chip was part of the video title. It's not a chip like you and I would think about like a CPU or something like that. It's not that at all. But let's get into this story here. 3D bioprinting, of course, has made significant strides in recent years, allowing scientists to create intricate three-dimensional structures using living cells. Hey, side note here, remember our recent news about a firm in Israel that has made significant advances in 3D muscle tissue generation for lab-grown meat, right? I think that was in our show just before the holidays. Well, this is part of the same technology that's at play here with this research. And this technology now offers the prospect of replacing live animal models in drug testing. A team of scientists from the University of Edinburgh, and I have a picture of the two researchers in the show notes, has developed a 3D printed device. That's the right word, not chip. 3D printed device that may be used instead of animals in pharmaceutical research and development and other uses where basic science research where animals are required. And in the article, they talk about around 80,000 animals in Europe are used in early stages of drug research each year with no subsequent therapeutic advantages. And I thought, I'm going to dig in and do a little more research. Now, that's just one part of animal testing, okay? 80,000 animals. Here's my side note. According to the Humane Society of the United States, it is estimated that more than, 50 million animals are used in all forms of experiments each year in the United States. Holy smokes. Now, that doesn't mean 50 million animals are tortured or killed. No, that's not what we're saying. But still, wow.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into animal testing. And like I said, I'm no advocate that we have to test on animals. But that can be everything from like dogs and cats and parrots that live in a laboratory setting that they kind of try to teach and learn more about how complex are dog brains, how complex are parrot brains,
right.
and they live perfectly normal lives. It's just
Right.
they're also in a laboratory setting. And then, Ralph, you have situations where you have, like, let's say 1,000 mosquitoes, and you're trying to develop a new less harmful pesticide for mosquitoes. I'm sure animals like that are rolled into that number as well. That
Sure.
if you're doing that, then you have to. But still, it is a problem, and I'm glad that it's being looked at.
Yeah, and it's understandable. I mean, again, in the history of research, rats, pigs, all and primates and so forth have been sacrificed. You could argue for the good of mankind, and but here we have a chance to go a different way, and I just cannot believe how profound, to me at least personally, how great this story is. So let's go on here. The 3D printed device the University of Edinburgh researchers created features 5 compartments. So you've got the image. If you're seeing the video, you can see this, folks. If you're listening to us as a podcast, there's 5 kind of like discs things, and you'll see they're interconnected with tubes. All right. So it features 5 compartments that mimic. One compartment mimics the human heart tissue, another lung tissue, another kidney tissue, another liver tissue, and finally a compartment with brain tissue. These compartments are linked by tubes that mimic the human circulatory system, allowing for regulated medication pumping. Wow. Just bear with us as we'll all start to really resonate here as we go on. As the photo with the article shows, it's a 3D printed plastic array of 5 compartments, as I mentioned before, each containing lab-grown replicants of heart, lung, kidney, liver, and brain tissue, all connected to a circulatory system. So again, I'm just rehammering what this is. The Medical Research Council of Europe has awarded 260,000 pounds, or that would be $328,000 US, which is not a lot of money, for advancing this device. I think they should pour millions into this. This is so profound. But as per the official news release, and in the show notes, we have a link, the funding was granted after the device demonstrated its ability to replicate drug perfusion. So I said to myself, well, I'm not going to assume everyone knows what that is. I don't. I want to know what that means. What does, so a side note in my notes, what do you mean by drug perfusion? Well, in medical terms, perfusion means the flow of blood or fluid to tissues and organs. This can occur naturally through the circulatory and lymphatic system in your body, lymph nodes. It can also occur synthetically through the administration of intravenous therapy and pharmaceutical drugs. Maybe the light bulb might be going on in your head now more and more as we go into this. Simply put, this plastic-based 5 compartments device, interlinked, demonstrated how a drug is circulated and dispersed, among the tissues and organs of the human body. Wow. The device uses, it goes on to say here, the device uses position emission tomography, PET, scanning to produce comprehensive 3D pictures of drug movement through the body. So they've created a virtual body on the tray with those 5 compartments, okay, with the key organs of the body. Side note, what is position emission tomography? Position emission tomography is a functional imaging technique that uses radioactive substances known as radio tracers to visualize and measure changes in metabolic process and in other physiological activities, including blood flow, regional chemical composition, and absorption. And so you can dive into that more. Now, scientists may use this approach, meaning the 5 compartment device they've created, to learn about and evaluate how various organs react to different medications. So instead of a poor animal going through this, this device potentially could do this. You could introduce the drug you're testing and see, oh, how does the liver react? Oh, how does the brain react? And wow. So beyond drug testing, this device could be used in testing of aerosols, food, and household products of all kinds. So wow, cosmetics, you name it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It just let this sink in.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's really important to just kind of weed out, like, even if this doesn't completely stop animal testing, it at least gets you, gets you something that you can say, okay, this is a medication for the brain. We put it in the brain compartment. Yeah. We let it circulate among the others. And then you see that, the let's say the liver tissue instantly shrivels up and dies. You're like, okay, well, this is not going to work. And, no need to really continue with this. We need to change something or we need to fix something. And, right there, that's one animal that didn't have to go through that kind of testing.
Yes.
So even if this doesn't, at face value, even if it doesn't immediately look like something that could replace something like that, it at least perhaps stops development before it reaches the point where it needs to go into an animal. So very cool.
And again, Ben, another example of very early twinkle of the eye, first pass disclosure of this research. If it gets amplified, supported, it'll go on, and who knows where we go from here.
Kudos to you again, because I've been hearing so much about this kind of stuff that body on chip, which was mentioned a few times in the Edinburgh one, way down here at the bottom. It's Liam's body on chip and blah blah blah. But anyways, the idea of a body on chip where in the future they're going to take your cells, your whatever cells that you need treated, and they're going to put it on a chip and kind of get them to grow like a little petri dish, and then they're going to test the drugs on your cells to see if your body is receptive to those drugs. And, kind of essentially run little lab experiments on you before they give you the final treatment. Ralph, little things like that are going to make healthcare so much more responsive and better and, more agile.
Oh, it's very encouraging.
This has, more immediate ramifications and, saving animals' lives. Computer America is a big supporter of the ASPCA or the SPCA, I should say. And stuff like that. But also, medical advancements, always a welcome thing. So with that being said, Ralph, great 4 stories. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're checking out the video portions, as we've been saying the whole time, you may notice there at the bottom, there's a few more stories. And again, it's not that these weren't good enough to make, prime time. It's that, Ralph sticks to 4 stories, which I think we really like. We get to focus in on 4 really great articles. But, things happen even outside those 4 things. I know it seems crazy. But Ralph, talk about the honorable mentions real quick.
Yes. We've got the links in the show notes. You can go check these out. These are some other stories that caught my eye. There are many, many stories I could have put in, but try to kind of condense it down. First one here, headline: the first EV, electric vehicle with a lithium-free sodium battery hits the road this month. Okay. There's been so much work on sodium batteries as an alternative to lithium. So this is a very, very important milestone in the world of automotive. Next headline, electric light transmits data 100 times faster than Wi-Fi from Tech Explorer. Check that one out. That's real interesting. Very interesting. Another one here. Company makes history with plan to open the country's first true, our nation's, the United States, first true high-speed train line between Los Angeles and Las Vegas. That's kind of fun. Check that one out. And last but not least, headline: can quote unquote golden fiber, by the way, they're talking about good old jute, just plain old jute, from swamp reeds replace plastic. A story of research out of India. I love this story, so check that out as well. Really cool stuff.
Very, very cool. And really all of these stories are, worth checking out because Ralph, again, he captures the essence, the general essence of these stories. And there's always a bit more if you want to, dig further down. And we'll have that in the show notes, computeramerica.com, right at the top. Ralph Bond, his segment, everything will be right there, including past shows. Those are always fun as well if you're looking for something to do, something to have on in the background. And Ralph, thank you so much for joining us. The next time you're on, we may be a little bit delayed because I believe that'll be the last day of CES. Or you may actually be on so we'll have to talk about that, see if you're going to be on Friday next week or if we're going to have to bump that to the week following. But ladies and gentlemen, here at Computer America, we're going to have a lot more to do. So stay tuned next week. Everyone, have a great one. Again, thank you for coming back. Hope you had a great break. And we'll catch you next time. Everyone, have a great day. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.